नमामि शंकराचार्य गुरुपाद सरोरुहं यस्य प्रसादान् मौढोऽपि सर्वज्ञोऽहं सदा भवं कामाक्षी करुणारूपं कामकोटि जगद्गुरुं चिन्मूर्तिं कलये चित्ते शंकराचार्यमप्ययं भक्ताग्र्यगिरिसम्भूता शंकरार्णवगामिनी पुनातु भवनं पुण्या श्रीगुरोश्चरितापगा वेद वेदांत साम्राज्य धर्म कामार्थ मोक्षदं विद्यारण्यं नुमः पुण्यं यो विद्यारण्यमच्छिनत् सदाशिव श्री ब्रह्मेन्द्र धृत स्वपद पादुकान् धीरान् परशुवेन्द्रार्यान् ध्यायान् सततं हृदि देवे देहे च देशे च भक्तारोग्य सुखप्रदं बुधपावर सेव्यन्तं श्री जयेन्द्रं नमाम्यहं नमामि शंकरान्वाख्य विजयेन्द्र सरस्वतीं श्री गुरुं शिष्टमार्गानुनेतारं सन्मतिप्रदं सत्यनारायण क्षेत्रात् सत्यव्रतमुपागतम् आश्रये कामकोटीशं सत्यश्री चंद्रशेखरं सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरु परंपराम्. Our Shri Kanchi Kamakoti Mulamnaya Sarvagya Peethadhipati Jagadguru Shri Shankara Vijayam Saraswati Shankaracharya Swamigal completed his Rameshwara Tirthayatra last year by himself performing Abhisheka to Ramanatha Swami, and from that occasion, with the prarthana of doing Anusandhanam of all the original Shankara Vijaya texts, we have started this prayatnam, and now we are examining the Anandagiriya Shankara Vijaya, the 27th prakarana in the text. As in the last year we have completed 21 upanyasas, and now this is the 22nd upanyasa, the first upanyasa of the 2534th Shankara Samvatsara, as Shankara Jayanti has recently been completed. And this Anandagiriya text was composed by one Anandanagiri, a direct disciple of Shri Shankara Bhagavatpāda, and he describes the discussions that Bhagavatpāda had with the followers of various matas. And in the recent parts, we have seen how Bhagavatpāda discussed with a few matas who could not really be called Vaidika, in the sense that they do not accept the Pramanya of the Veda. For example, the Charvaka Mata, the Saugata Mata, and so on. And in the first part of this 27th Prakarana, Bhagavatpāda is approached by one Kshapanaka, that is also a name of a follower of a particular Mata, and they consider Kala, or time, to be Paramatma, to be the greatest. And Bhagavatpāda jocularly tells him, I will tell you when it is time to speak with me. So for whatever reason, Bhagavatpāda asks him to wait until then, by which time a follower of the Jaina Mata, he was wearing just a kaupina tato Jainaha kaupina matradhari maladigdhangaha sada arhan niti muhur muhu chairucharanne. So he was filled, his body was dirt, filled, coated with dirt, and he was continuously chanting Arhan, Arhan in a high voice. And in the Jaina Mata, they do not consider the existence of Ishvara per se, but they consider that there are many Siddhas, and it is possible that Arhan is the greatest of the Siddhas, so it is his name that they keep pronouncing. And he comes to Bhagavatpāda and he speaks to Acharya. Samagatya lokagurum idamu vacha matiya matam atyanta sugamam shruyatam jinadevah sarvesham kila muktidaha. So now he quotes that let me explain my mata to you. It is very, very easy to understand. Jinadeva. So he quotes somebody called Jinadeva, probably the one who initiated the Jaina Mata according to their tradition. He gives moksha to everybody. So who is this Jinadeva? And the lakshana that he gives for Jinadeva, ji iti vachyasya jivasya na iti padena na punarbhava iti. So he gives the explanation of the word Jina, saying that ji refers, the first syllable refers to jiva, and the second syllable na refers, it means that this jiva will not attain rebirth. He will not be born again. And sa eva divyate iti devaha sarva prani hirutpundarikeshu jiva rupenam vyavasthidaha. This is quite strange, but what he describes is very close to Actually, what we say in Vedanta Mata about Paramatma, the Devata who resides in the Hridaya Pundarika, in the heart of all Jivas, the Paramatma who resides as Jiva in the heart of all living beings. So, because he divyate, he shines, so he is called Deva. And the Jaina says that iti jnanamatrena dehapatanantaram muktihi. So, just by knowing this, after this sharira falls, you will attain moksha. Tasya nitya mukta swarupatva. So, as I mentioned earlier, uh, if we examine this, some things will found to be not logical, but that is how he states it. He says that because that Jina Deva is a Nitya Mukta Swarupa, he is always free from all these shackles of body and so on. By knowing that that Jina Deva is present in all bodies, one attains moksha after the falling of this body. So there is a lot of problem here. If the Jinadeva is really, he is not at all shackled by anything, then how come he is present as the Jiva in all these physical bodies? It is not explained here. And if it is by the realization of this alone that one can attain moksha, then why he says dehapatanantaram mukti? After this body falls, he will attain moksha. Why that is also not very clear. As mentioned earlier, that will also be discussed later on. Ato jivaha shuddhaha dehastu malapindaha. So he says he differentiates between the jiva and the deha, which is fine, which is all these is quite in accordance with the Vedanta Siddhanta also. That is not a problem here. He says that the jiva is pure and the deha is malapinda. This physical body is full of impurities. Of these two, the body by nature, it exudes all kinds of impurities. It creates impurities. It is called, there is a saying, kayam adhe shauchatvat. So you try to clean it by all kinds of water and all kinds of scented material. But unfortunately, it stays like that only for a short while, but it goes back because it itself produces impurities. So that is true. But what he says, because of, and on the other hand, it is also true that the jiva is shuddha, the jiva is pure. But by this logic, what he proposes is that snanadina tasya shuddhyabhavat vritha prayojanam snanadi karma nagartavyam. So he says there is no meaning in doing snana because the body cannot really be made pure by the snana, and the jiva is itself always pure, so there is also no use of snana for it. So there is no necessity to do snana. That is why, as mentioned earlier, his entire body, it was described to be dirty. Evam prapte paramaguru pathati. So Acharya replies to him, Bho Jaina, kimuktam bhavata, jivasya dehanivrittireva muktiriti, nishprayojanatvat snanadi karma nakartavyamiti cha tadavyuktam. So we can see that Acharya replies to all people who are very sincerely asking questions, even though they may not have Acharya, they may not do Anusthana. Here in this particular Prakarana, it is not mentioned that this particular Jaina, he had any bad habits or anything like that, except that he did not accept the Pramanya of the Veda and the necessity of doing Karmanusthana. He did not advocate living as you wish. So Acharya does reply to all such people and shows them some path, and they also appreciate it, and later on they try to come up on the path that Acharya shows them, that we can see at the end also. So now Acharya replies to his arguments. You say that once the physical body falls, just by that he will attain moksha, you say. And you say that there is no meaning to karmanushtanas like snana and so on. But this is not correct. Why? Jivasya dehatrayam vidyate sthula sukshma karana bheda. So the jiva has not only this physical body that you see, but it has three bodies. The sthula sharira, which is the physical body that we see here, the sukshma sharira, the subtle body inside it. But the point inside is not yet established here. It is going to be, he is going to misunderstand. And the Karana Sharira. So, by the superficial listening to this Pratipadana, the other person is going to object to Acharya's argument. But let us go step by step. So, Sthula Sharira, what is now Acharya gives, what is the Lakshana of this Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. So, here we have to explain something. Sthulasya Lakshanam tu Panchikrita Panchamahabhuta Swarupatvam. So, we have to understand prakriya called Panchikarana, which is it is given as Upadesha by a guru to his Shishya at the very starting of taking up sannyasa, and it is also part of the Nitya Sandhyavandana of sannyasis. It is necessary for a person to realize that Atma is the only truth. So this prakriya, it is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad. It is where the Taittiriya Upanishad says that from Atma Swarupa, Akasha was formed, from Akasha Vayu was formed, and from Vayu Agni was formed, from Agni Jalam, and from Jalam Prithvi. Prithvi, not just this globe, but whatever that is physically solid. So step by step, from the very, very, very subtlemost Atma Swarupa, Akasha, which is itself subtle, and which we cannot neither see nor touch. From that came Vayu, which we cannot see but we can touch. And from that, the other three bhutas, all of which we can both see and touch, and so on. So, based on this, actually, in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is the prakriya, the Chandogya Upanishad, the prakriya called Trivritkarana is explained, whereby the bhutas which are created, they do not simply exist in separation. They do not, they are not entirely distinct or totally dissociated from one another, but they are combined together. Again, it should be understood that this is not as if chemical reaction for so many ml of this chemical and so many ml of that chemical and so on, but this is a tattvika vichar explanation. So the tattvas of the Panchamahabhutas, they, first of all, whatever was initially created, they are called apanchikrita. So they are not combined with one another, first of all, but then the Panchikarana happens. They combine with all the other four bhutas. So it is said that for each bhuta, one part of the bhuta splits up and combines with all the other four bhutas. So likewise, this particular bhuta, the remaining half of this bhuta, will receive parts from the other four bhutas. That in this way, all these Panchamahabhutas come to the state called Panchikrita state. And it is only the Panchikrita state which is perceptible by the senses, and the Apanchikrita state is not perceptible by the senses. So this is how the Panchikarana Prakriya is explained. And the Chandogya Upanishad, actually, it talks only about Trivritkarana, because it does not talk about the creation of Akasha and Vayu, because those two are not so visible to us, so perceptible to us. So for an initial stage, it talks only about the three visible bhutas. And because of this variation in the Brahma Sutra, there are discussions saying, first of all, whether Akasha is created or not. Then it is established that yes, Akasha is created. Just because it is not there in Upanishad does not mean we should discard the other Upanishad, which does say that Akasha was also created. From that, Vayu was also created. From that, the other three bhutas. So this Trivritkarana is just an illustration. We have to accept that all five bhutas are mixed with one another to form the Panchikrita Panchamahabhutas, which are perceptible to our senses. But the Apanchikrita Panchamahabhutas are also there. And here, the purpose of all this prakriya of explaining that from Atma Swarupa came Akasha and so on, is to enable the sadhaka who wants to go to the Atma Swarupa to mentally dissolve. Of course, it is not possible for us to physically dissolve the whole world. That pralaya is going to happen at by the control of Parameshwara at some stage. But that pralaya is not useful for our moksha. For the pralaya that is moksha, the step that we have to follow is that this sadhaka has to do the mental dissolution of the Panchamahabhutas one by one into the previous bhuta. So mentally, he should realize that the Prithvi has come from Jala Tattva, and so he has to mentally dissolve this into the Jala Tattva, and that into the Agni Tattva, that into the Vayu Tattva, that into the Akasha Tattva, and Akasha Tattva into the Atma Swarupa. So that is why Shri Sadashiva Brahmahendra in his Atma Vidya Vilasa also says, Jani Viparita Kramato Buddhya Pravilapya Panchabhutani Parishishtam Atma Tattvam Pashyannaste Munishantaha. So, this is the reason for explaining this Prakriya. Now, Acharya says in this text, Sthulasya Lakshanantu Panchikrita Panchamahabhuta Swarupatvam. So, this physical body, this Sthula body that we see here, it is created it is formed out of the Panchikrita Panchamahabhutas and the Sukshma Sharira, that inner subtle Sharira which we cannot see, that is formed. It has 17 aspects here. That is how it is explained, and other text is called 19 aspects. We will explain what is meant by that. And these are formed from the Apanchikrita Panchamahabhuta. So they are not perceptible. The Sukshma Sharira is not perceptible to us as per this particular text. So, what are the 17 aspects? Ekadasha Indriya Pancha Prana Buddhi Sanghata Rupa. So normally the order is given differently, that there are 5 Jnanendriyas, the senses through which we perceive, 5 Karmendriyas, the Indriyas through which we act, the 5 Pranas or the 5 Vayus, Prana, Param, Vyano, Dana, Samana, and Manas and Buddhi, mind and intellect. Mind which is having emotions, and intellect which decides. And to this, it is also sometimes we add Chitta and Ahankara, the other 2 aspects of the Chatushtaya Antakarana, 4 aspects of the Antakarana. So it is sometimes also said 19 aspects. Anyhow, this is the Sukshma Sharira, and the Karana Sharira is beyond this. The Karana Sharira is the Ajnana, the Maya, the ignorance, which causes us to take up this body. So that is why it is called the Karana Sharira, it causes. So when the pralaya of these shariras has to happen, tesham layastu sthulasya sukshme tasya karanasya sagune sagunasya nirgune paramatmani. So step by step, the sthula sharira has to take up laya into the sukshma sharira, that has to take laya into the karana sharira, that has to take laya into the saguna paramatma. So saguna paramatma is Sarveshwara, who is still there in the Saprapancha sthiti, this world, in the stage where this world exists, and Nirguna, which is beyond this world, the Paramatma, Shuddha Paramatma Swarupa, which is the Mula form of Ishvara himself. So this is how it has to be dissolved. Tattad Adhipati Vishishtaram Dehanam Evam Laye Satchidananda Lakshana Lakshataha Paramatmaiva Jivaha Tatha Bheda Brahma Nivrittau Muktihi iti Nirabhadyam. So the proper procedure by which one can attain mukti is that these 3 shariras, the Sthula, Sukshma and the Karana Sharira, along with their 3 adhipatis. So who are these 3 adhipatis? It is clearly explained in the text called Mandukya Upanishad Karika, which was composed by Shri Gaudapada Acharya, the Paramaguru of Shri Shankara Bhagavatpāda. So it is the single Atma Swarupa which is there in this body. But when we say that there are 3 bodies, the Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira, the single Chaitanya, when the Chaitanya perceives its identity with the Stula Sharira, when I perceive that I am such a physical person and I am here, I am doing this through my physical body, then that Chaitanya Swarupa is called Vishwa. And when that same Chaitanya identifies itself with the Sukshma Sharira in the state of dream, through the Sukshma Sharira, it perceives itself as doing some things, then it is called Taijasa. And when it goes into the Karana Sharira in the state of Sushupti or deep sleep, then it is called Prajna. So, These are the adhipatis, the so-called adhipatis. That is the Chaitanya, the single Chaitanya, which is perceiving everything through these three bodies. So that those three bodies, and along with those three bodies, the Jiva, the Chaitanya Swarupa, which is associated with those three bodies, has to dissolve. And we should realize that the Paramatma, who is of the nature of Satchidananda Swarupa, he is himself the Jiva. The Jiva is none other than the Paramatma. And so far we had the illusion, the Brahma, that the Jiva is different from the Paramatma, but that illusion has to go away. Only based on this one can attain mukti. This is what Bhagavatpāda said. And now from the side of the other person, the Jaina, the objection comes. Nanu, pratyakcha drishta sharirat sharirantara kalpana nirarthika tat satta matre pramana bhavat yadyasti tarhi jivasya dehatraya sancharo vaktavyaha. So, the Jaina objects saying that there is no pramana, there is no basis for saying that there are three shariras. This physical sthula sharira is visible, so there is pramana that this exists. So the other two bodies have to be, you have to posit, you have to hypothesize that they exist, but there is no basis for that. This is what he objects. He says, if you accept that there is no meaning, there is no need, or there is no use of imagining as per him, that there are two more shariras. And he further objects saying that if there are three shariras, you should say that the jiva travels between these three shariras. So in the physical, in this waking state, the jiva is living within the sthula sharira. And when he goes to the dream state, manakalpite swapne maya ganga drishta himavan maya drishtaha iti cha pratyayaha asti ataha sthulat dehat atmano nirgamaha yuktaha. So it would be necessary, if you say that there are three shariras, that because one dreams that I saw Ganga, I saw Himachala, somebody who is residing in Dakshina Bharata, he feels that he saw Ganga in his dream state, then it would be required to accept that the same jiva, he enters the Sukshma Sharira, and using the Sukshma Sharira, he travels to the Ganga, to Himachala, and sees that and comes back. And this is actually refuted in the same Gaudapada Acharya Karika, which I mentioned earlier. Actually, this entire Prakarana is quite related to the Gaudapada Acharya Karika. And so he says that you have to accept that this jiva travels from this body to the other body, and through that body he goes there. But Gaudapada Acharya says that there is no basis for saying that this jiva actually travels to somewhere else and sees all those things. Ataha, so and further, but as per him, I'm talking from the point of view of the Siddhanta, but as per the Jaina, he says not only he has to leave the Sthula Sharira and go to the Sukshma Sharira, and in the deep sleep state, or Sushupti, he has to leave the Sukshma Sharira and go to the Karana Sharira. Sushupto Karana Sharire Praveshe Jivarasya Manakalpita Swapnad Nirgamanameva Bhakta. You have to accept that he leaves the Swapna or the Sukshma Sharira and then goes to the Karana Sharira. Then, so if you accept that the jiva keeps going from one sharira to another like this, nirgate jive punah praptya bhavat, how can you say that this jiva will come back to the same sharira? So actually, even in the case of dreaming, it would not be possible to say that that person goes to that particular Ganga or other place and he comes back. So the Jaina never said that he will come back, but he objects, saying that he actually says that it is not possible, there is no basis for him to come back. So, Swapnanantarameva. Swapnanantaram means immediately after the start of Swapna, not after the end of Swapna. Because the start of Swapna itself means that the Jiva has taken up the Sukshma Sharira, so he has left the Sthula Sharira. Then what is the meaning of Maranam? Death is the Jiva leaving the Sthula Sharira. So, Swapnanantarameva Marana Prasakti. He immediately after one goes to dream state, it would mean that he has entered death. Pratyaksha, which is not acceptable, is the nature of his objection. Pratyaksha drishta panchabhutesh bhuta tattveshveva lingasya antarbhava tat kalpana vyartha. So he says that it is not correct to say that there are three separate shariras. We can say that this whatever this manas or other pancha indriyas, he further says indriyanam tadrupatvat. So all the senses, all this can be taken to be of the form of the panchabhutas, the sthula panchabhutas itself, which are perceptible to us. There is no necessity to imagine the existence of an extra sukshma sharira. Ataha anaya klishta kalpanaya nahi kinchat prayojanamasti. By this difficult, unnecessary imagination, there is no use. Tasmad eko dehaha pratijivam. So for one jiva, only one body is there. Tat patanantaram jivasya muktihi. So after this jiva falls, the jiva will attain moksha. This physical body falls, the jiva will attain moksha. Shri Madbhiridamuchate. So Acharya replies to this saying, Jaina, from the Shrutavanasi, oh Jaina, you have not listened to what I am saying. You have not understood what I am saying. Panchikrata bhutaihi sthula shariram abhavat. Nahi tanmatrena purna deha siddhyar bhavati. Apanchikrata panchabhuta bhava. So even though by the Panchikrata Pancha Mahabhutas, this Sthula Sharira, the physical body, was created, not just because of that, that is not sufficient for creating the entire body. Because it does not take into account the Panchikrata Pancha Mahabhutas, the Sukshma Bhutas. Ataha Panchikritaihi, Apanchikritaischа Bhutaihi, Deha Siddhir Vaktavya. So it is necessary to accept that the body is formed by the Panchikrata Bhuta and the Apanchikrata Bhuta, because that is how it is shown in the Shruti. Ataha sthula apekshya anyat linga shariram angikritam sthula sharira patanantaram jive sukshma sharira sakte paraloka gamanarabha prasajjate. So we have to accept that there is a sukshma sharira which is subtler beyond this physical body, and only once the physical body falls. So the objection was that once the jiva goes into swapna state, dream state, he enters the sukshma sharira, so it would mean death. That was the objection. But this is assuming that these three bodies are like three separate houses. He leaves this house and goes into another house. But the kalpana is not like that. The model of the three shariras is not like that. It is like the house is situated within a compound wall. So in the waking state, a person living in a house, he will travel all around the compound wall, whatever the parts of his which are within that compound wall, and he will indulge in all sorts of activities or spend time in activities, outside activities. Then in the evening time, he once those outer activities are have come to an end, he comes into his house. Within the house, he will be having his night meals and taking care of his family matters and so on, and he will be traveling, moving within the house. And at night, once all these things are also over, when he goes to sleep, he goes to his particular room and he goes to sleep. So this particular room is within the house, which is within the compound wall. Likewise, the Karana Sharira is within the Sukshma Sharira, which is within the Sthula Sharira. So it is not as if these three Shariras are entirely outside one another, by which the objection would arise. So Acharya clarifies that only when this physical body falls, then he has to take up the Sukshma Sharira and he has to go to the Paraloka, meaning the next body. But a person who has done yoga abhyasa and attained a particular stage of yoga siddhi, Harurukshor Muner Yogam Karma Muchate Yogarudhasya Taseva Shamah Muchate, as it is said in the Bhagavad Gita. So once he has become a Yogarudha, he realizes that Arudhasya Purushasya tu Jivalinge Manasyeva Sarva Madhyastam Bhavati. So the Manas, which is the subtlemost aspect of this Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira, he realizes, this sadhaka realizes that all these outside physical objects and whatever we perceive through our senses, it is all adhyasta, or it is all superimposed upon this manas. And when we do furthermore sadhana, tat shuddham manastu, how does this sadhana, because of the sadhana, the manas on which all this is superimposed, it further dissolves. Jagridat yavastha swamibhyaha Vishwataijasa Pragyebhyascha Upari Virajamanam. So the Vishwataijasa and Pragya, who are the Swamis, who are earlier called the Adhipatis of these three avasthas, beyond those three, Upari Virajamanam Angushtamatram Sarva Jagat Prabhum. So the Lord of all the worlds, who is said in the Upanishads to reside in the heart of the Brahmana of a thumb, Angushtamatra Purusho Madhya Atmani Tishtati. So that Bhagavan, this mind has to dissolve into that. Bhagavan is called Manonmana. He is beyond the mind. So once Manonmanakyam Samadhigachati, Sayeva Karana Shariralaya iti prasiddha. So only at that stage, this Karana Sharira itself would attain Laya. So the Laya of the Sthula Sharira, the physical body, whether it falls or not, is not important. It is not, it has no bearing with regard to the attainment of moksha. What is really necessary for the attainment of moksha is the Karana Sharira Laya, which is described as before. Evam nashte sharira tritajaye saguna nirguna ubhayatmakaha manonmanaha paramatmane lino bhavati. So once these three shariras, so once the Karana Sharira is lost, the Karana Sharira is what brings back that is why it is called the Karana Sharira. It is what brings back the jiva to experience again some more swapnas, some more dreams, and some more physical jagrata avastha states of waking. Because again in the Gaudapada Acharya Karika, Gaudapada Acharya says, Dvaitasya agrahanam tulyam ubhayoh pragya turyayoho bija nidrayutah pragyaha sacha turye navidyate. So the perception of Dvaita, or all these dualities or variations that we see in the world, it is common to both the Swapna Sthiti and the Jagrat Sthiti, the waking state and the dream state. In both these states, we see lots of different kinds of things. But in the dreamless sleep state, in the Sushupti state, we do not see various kinds of things. Actually, the Upanishad says that daily everybody goes to Brahmavastu. Daily everybody attains Laya in the Sadvastu. But unfortunately, see, if we are going to deep sleep and we are with Paramatma himself, but who is of the nature of Nityananda, but we do not realize that we are along with Paramatma, then what is the use? So just because we are not perceiving Dvaita at that state does not mean we attain moksha. Some people have misunderstood that Sushupti itself means moksha. The Gaudapada Acharya clearly states that Sushupti is not moksha, and this is how he explains it. Because when he is there, the jiva is there in the Sushupti state, even though he does not perceive any other Dvaita other than himself, but the bija, the seeds of his further experiences, the seeds which further sprout when the appropriate water comes, it further sprouts into dreams and other waking experiences, it is still there. So those bijas or those seeds, once they are fried, and they can only be fried by the jnanagni, the fire of jnana, and only then they will not again sprout. They will not cause again punarjanma. But until then, that bija will continue once, even though the person has gone into the Sushupti Sthiti, because of this bija, he will come back into the Sthula, in the Swapna Avastha, Sushupti Avastha, and into the Jagrata Avastha, and so on. He will continue to experience all these things. So that is how Acharya says, Bija Nidrayutah Pragyaha Sacha Turiye Navidyate. But once one person has attained that Turiya, the fourth, the moksha sthiti, because his bijas are all burnt away, or they are fried away, or they are totally burnt away, then there is no necessity for this person to further take janma, and he at that state he does not perceive this Dvaita. He only perceives that at that state he perceives that Nityananda Swarupa. So as mentioned earlier, this once these three shariras have been crossed, he enters into Saguna Paramatma, and through that into Nirguna Paramatma. He has himself become the Manonmana. This sadhaka himself has become Parameshwara, who is Manonmana, and he dissolves into the Shuddha Paramatma Swarupa. Saeva Manonmanaha Paramatma Lino Bhavati, Saeva Mokshaha iti Sarvaihi Atindriya Vidbhi Udahrataha. So this is moksha as it is explained by all those who understand what is beyond the senses. Evam Atyanta Dusadhyasya Mokshasya Nahi Dehapatat Prapti Sambhavati iti Siddhantaha. So when moksha, it is not so easy. Just if one person attains, it goes to death, does it mean he immediately attains moksha? And earlier also we have clarified how there was the conflict of the person himself saying that through jnana he will attain moksha, or through the physical body falling he will attain moksha. That conflict is also there. But Acharya clarifies that it is not so easy to attain moksha, because you have to go to the extent of dissolving the sthula sharira into the sukshma sharira and into the karana sharira. And actually it is important that the karana sharira dissolves into the saguna paramatma, and through that into the nirguna paramatma. Whether the physical body sthula sharira falls or not is not important. So so it is not possible to simply state that just by the falling of the physical body one can attain moksha, is the explanation that Bhagavatpāda gave. Evam Srimad Viruktaha Jainaha Shishai Saha Vesha Bhasha Viyuktaha Vimuktaha. So he realizes, because he actually has done some kind of real tattva vichara, so he realizes that this person has something more to teach him. He has lots of higher concepts to explain to him. So he feels that he has to stay along with this guru and learn more from him. And earlier also we saw how that the other Matavalambi, he offered to do Kainkarya of the physical protection of this the Saparivara Bhagavatpāda Samuha. And likewise this Shishya, this Jaina, he says, I will take up the duty of bringing all the tandula and all the rice and other things which are needed for your bhiksha. Paramaguruanam pratidinam tanduladi vastvaharana shilaha parijanaha bhavatu. Let me, you please permit me to do service unto you, to become a parijana to you. And thus ends the 27th prakarana of this Anandagiriya Shankara Vijaya. And with the anugraha of Bhagavatpāda, let us do anusandhana of the further parts in further sessions. Sarvavyapaka Chaitanya Rupena Adyapi Tishtati Sayeva Shankaracharya Gurur Mukti Pradasatam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jai Jai Shankara.